Okay, perfect. Good job, Lex. Good job. So this chapter is going to be real estate brokerage. Did we go a little too quick over the last chapter? No. So you're fine with this pace? Mark? Perfect. So let's get into real estate brokerage. The real estate is an industry driven by small business. Licensees must know the product. You need to know the product. When I say you need to know the product, what do I mean by that? You need to know the houses on the market in your area. You got a buyer looking for something in Ross Draver, you need to know what products are on the market in Ross Draver. And you must also know how to run your own business. So real estate licensee, in my office, you could be either an employee or an independent contractor by law. In my office, all my licensees are independent contractors. So you're your own business, Vaughn. You got to track your expenses. You got to put a budget together. You got to put a goal together on how much you want to sell. So you are your own business. And that's the nice thing about the real estate is for a very nominal fee, you can start up your own business. You can start up your own business. So a little bit of history. In 1950, there were small independently owned real estate companies. They really didn't share, Christine, with each other. So if you came to me and it was 1950 and you said you wanted to list your house, I would be typically the only person that would show it. Okay? And then you had a lot of these small brokerages, Jacob, and they would all sell what they had in their inventory. And then there was no co-broking. So if you had your company, Jared, and I had my company, I didn't sell your listings, you didn't sell my listings. We just sold our own listings. Then in 1960, and I would know this date, to present, brokers shared information through the multiple listing service. That gave better exposure to sellers' properties and give buyers more choices. Was the domain of the broker was changing to allow consumer access. Large number of multi-list services caused brokers to join more than one provider. So right now there's a West Penn multi-list. There used to be a West Penn multi-list that covered this area, and then there used to be a Uniontown multi-list that covered Uniontown. So Uniontown's properties weren't in the West Penn. West Penn wasn't in Uniontown. So because there were several multi-lists, I joined both of them. Okay? So you can join more than one multi-list. Now let's imagine each table is your own brokerage. So Lexi's a real estate company, Ellen's a real estate company, Christine's a real estate company, Jared and Ray. Nowadays, the way it works is any listings Lex gets, she puts on a multiple listing service, and anybody that's a member of that multi-list. So all you guys would have access to her listing and be able to sell it and get part of the fee. That's how it's done today. That's how it's done today. So what year was the multi-list started? 1960. It was started to give sellers more exposure and buyers more options. That's what you need to know about. The brokerage is basically the business of bringing parties together. And the real estate broker is a person's license to buy, sell, exchange, or lease real property for others and to charge a fee for that service. So let's talk a little bit about the broker-salesperson relationship. Let's talk a little bit about that. The real estate salesperson is licensed to perform real estate activities on behalf of a licensed real estate broker. So that's important for you guys to know. You can't, just because you have a real estate licensee license, go out and do business in your own name, correct?
Right.
You're working underneath a broker. An employee, the broker may require employees to follow rules, hours, and attendance. So if I hire you as an employee, I can tell you when to come to work, when to go home, But an independent contractor, which most of you will be independent contractors, okay? I can't tell you specific office hours. I can't tell you to come to meetings and so forth. You're an independent contractor. So you pass your test, you get your license with me. I can't tell you you have to be at the office for training at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays because you're an independent contractor. Okay? Now, if I don't feel you're trained, I can do something about that. But I can't tell you what hours to come and work. I can't tell you Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, you have to go show houses. If you're an employee, you can. Independent contractor, you can't. Personal assistants may be licensed or unlicensed. So you can have a personal assistant help you with the paperwork, help you with flyers. They can even sit in an open house as long as they don't talk to anybody about the real estate or give them, they could have information set out where people can grab it. You have to have a license to discuss real estate with somebody with the intent to sell it. Broker's compensation. Commissions are always negotiable. Always know that. Commissions are always negotiable, Seneca.
Start high, end up low.
Start high, end up low. I like to start high and stay high. They're specified in a contract with the consumer. So the commission would be spelled out in the listing agreement for a seller and the buyer agency agreement with a buyer. Commissions are usually earned when you have a completed sales agreement and the transaction is consummated. That's when you get paid. Okay? A contract is accepted and executed by the seller and the buyer, and everybody has copies. So that's when a contract is executed. But we typically don't get paid until the transaction is consummated. Go ahead.
So if you are looking to list a property and the homeowner wants to negotiate the commission,
right,
then they get in touch with the broker, and the broker is the one who.
Well, I give my agents the authority to negotiate commissions. I give my agents that authority, and I have minimum standards that they can't go below without seeing me on it. So I can set the guidelines for my company, but if the seller doesn't agree with my guidelines, he's not obligated to list with us. Incurring costs. You need to know that term. What is incurring costs? Anybody know? We talked about it. When the broker, go ahead.
If it wasn't for this, you wouldn't have that.
When a broker starts an uninterrupted chain of events that result in a sale. So when he starts an uninterrupted chain of events that results in a sale, shows the house, that's one chain. Writes a sales agreement, that's two chains, right? That's another chain. Processes the transaction, Jake, that could be another. Then go to closing. So he starts the process and then finishes it through till it's consummated. What's the term ready, willing, and able buyer? It's one who is prepared to buy on the seller's terms and ready to take positive steps towards consummating the transaction. When you have a ready, willing, and able buyer, he's willing to sign an agreement with the terms that are agreeable with the seller and take steps to consummate the transaction. And a broker can share compensation with other brokers. So if Lexi has her own brokerage and she puts a listing in a multiple listing service, let's say she has a commission of 6%. She could put on in there, right in the multi-list, if another broker sells it, they'll get 3. And let's say Ellen has a buyer for Lexi's listing, and Ellen brings a ready, willing, and able buyer, right? And they sign a contract. When that transaction is consummated, they'll pay Lexi 6%, and then in turn, Lexi pays you the other 3%. Because the fee always goes to the listing broker by law. Then the listing broker splits. Okay. Questions? Excited? If a transaction is not consummated, a broker may be still entitled to compensation. You can put language in the listing agreement that you're due a fee regardless if the house sells or not. Okay. And if a seller defaults, so Lexi has this listing, and it's Vonnie's the seller. Okay. And Ellen has the buyer. It's Lauren. And she produces a ready, willing, and able buyer. And they sign a contract. And then Vonnie is the buyer. She defaults in the agreement. She just says, I don't want to buy it. I don't want to buy it. And she's the I don't want to sell. And she's the seller. Lexi can go after Vonnie for compensation, even though it wasn't consummated. If the seller defaults, they can owe the broker a fee. Okay. If the seller defaults, they could owe the broker a fee. It's illegal in Pennsylvania for a broker to share fees with anyone other than salesperson's license with the broker or another broker. So let me rephrase that. So Lexi has an agent, Samantha. She can share fees with Samantha because Samantha's Lexi's agent. Or Ellen is another broker. She can split fees with Ellen, another broker. That's the only two people you can split fees with. Either one of your agents or another licensed broker. Okay? Questions? No? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about salesperson's compensation. The amount and method of compensation is set by an agreement between the broker and the salesperson. So typically, the broker and the salesperson, so all you guys, once you pass your test and you go meet with your new broker, he'll sit down and negotiate a commission schedule for you. Okay. And again, that commission is what? Negotiable by law. Okay. You can pay an agent a fixed salary. You can give them a share of the commission. Okay. If you pay an agent a fixed salary, chances are he's going to be an employee, correct? Not an independent contractor. Most independent contractors get a share of the commission, whatever your agreement is with your broker. There's 100% commission plans where the agent gets 100% of the commission and pays certain fees to the broker. And then there's graduated commission plans where you start at 50%, and after you sell so much, you go to 55, and after you sell so much, you go to 60 on up. And then there's also team models. So let's say we got a team model with Zaria, Christine, and Samantha. And Samantha was an agent on the team, Azaria was an agent on the team, and Christine was the team leader. With the team model, all the business is done under Christine's name. And if Samantha brings a buyer and puts a deal together, it goes under Christine's name, but the broker would pay Christine, and then Samantha would get paid part of that, whatever your agreement is with the team. So just know that there's different ways a salesperson can get paid, right? Fixed salary, a share of the commission, 100% of the commission, a graduated plan, and even the team model. I would just know that you'll be okay. And the amount of compensation the salesperson gets is set by the agreement between the broker and the salesperson. So we're in agreement. Okay. So here's an example in the book. Math concepts on page 235. Okay. So a commission may be shared by many people. in a transaction. And you may have some of these questions on your test. The listing broker, the listing broker, salesperson, the buyer's broker, or the buyer's broker, salesperson. In a diagram may help you determine which licensee is determined to receive the amount of the total commission. For example, if a salesperson while working for a broker took a listing at $189,000 at 6%. At 6%. Okay? The second salesperson, while working for a different broker, found the buyer for the property. If the property sold for the list price, okay, the listing broker and the buyer's broker shared the commission equally. Okay, so 189,000 times 6%. How much is the commission?
11,340.
I don't know. Do the math. You got a calculator? Get a calculator. Yeah, don't look at the book for the answers. As a matter of fact, don't look at the book anymore. I'll do it up here so you don't see the answers. So what's the total commission? How much?
11,340.
And it says it was divided equally between the listing broker and the buyer and the selling broker, right? So how much does the listing broker get? How much does the selling broker get? $5,670. They each get $5,670, right? Let me read the question. Don't look at the book for the answers. The second salesperson, while working for a different broker, found the buyer for the property. If the property sold for the list price and the listing broker and buyer's broker shared the commission equally, and the buyer's broker kept 45% of the commission. So the buyer's broker, in this case, we're calling him the seller's broker. Okay. So then that is split between the broker and the salesperson, right? Right? So they said that the buyer's broker kept 45%. So what amount would that be? How much?
2,551.
2,551. And that would be what, 45%? And then how much would the agent get, or the sales agent in that transaction? How much?
Are they splitting it equally?
No.
Oh,
The broker got 45% of this, so how much is the salesperson getting? 55%, right? Gotta make 100%, right? So they're getting 55. So what's 55% of 5,670?
oh.
How much?
3,100.
Let me see if they talk about the listing side. The listing broker and the buyer broker shared it equally. The buyer broker kept 45% of the commission received. How much did the buyer salesperson receive? There you go. 3,118.50 would be the correct answer. You may see these kind of questions on the test. Okay? So let me give you one that's not in the book. Sale price $180,000, 5% commission. How much is the total commission? Put your hand up if you know the answer. Jared?
9,000.
9,000 even? there's two brokers involved. The buyer's broker and the seller's broker, okay, or the listing broker. And they split it equally. How much each broker's get? The selling broker split his 4,500 between the broker and the salesperson, and gave the salesperson 60% of the commission. 2,700. Pretty easy math, right? And then they may ask you how much the broker kept. So you need to know that that's just common math that you need to be able to figure out on a commission. Independent contractor. Somebody has a current real estate license, written contract with the broker. He's not treated as an employee for income tax purposes. He's treated as an independent contractor. At least 90% of his income has to come from production, not hours worked. How do we know that? So to be an independent contractor, at least 90% of the income, or most of the income, the test may say, the majority of the income has to come from production, not hours worked. Okay.
On page 237.
With an employee, you have control over activities. And if they're an employee, you withhold Social Security taxes from their pay. So is anybody an employee here? Lazaria. They hold Social Security taxes from your pay, right? And then you get a net. Is anybody an independent contractor here? Okay. So as an independent contractor, whoever's paying you does not hold Social Security, and then you have to make typically quarterly payments to the government. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about antitrust laws. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about antitrust laws. Things that are prohibited, monopolies, and practices that are unreasonable, restrain free trade. So, right now I was listening to a stock show this morning, and, they're worried about some of the big tech companies, Amazon, for example, of being a monopoly. See, the government doesn't like when just one person's in control over a large industry. So Amazon's always looking over their shoulder. So it's the same thing in real estate, okay? You have price fixing. It's the practice of setting practices for procedures, products and services, rather than letting competition in the open market establish those pricing. In real estate, price fixing occurs when a competing broker agrees to set uniform sales commission fees. Price fixing is illegal. Okay, so let me give you an example of price fixing. Lexi's a broker, right? She may be a broker one of these days. She works for Lexi's Real Estate Services. And Ellen's a broker, and she works for Ellen Chapman Real Estate Services. Okay, so Lexi and Ellen have lunch, and they say, me and you are the two big guns here in Ross Traver Township. Let's do this. On any listings that we take, let's not take less than a 6% commission. That's illegal. That's a violation of antitrust rules. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to meet. You're not even talking about that with another broker. I tell my agents, don't even talk to it. The only person you're allowed to talk to about setting minimum fit charges or what you're going to charge is your broker. You're not allowed to talk to another agent from another company about it. So let's say two agents, Bonnie and Lauren. Bonnie works for Lexi. Lauren works for Ellen. Them two get together and they say, hey man, me and you sell most of the listings here in Ross Draver. Why don't we have a deal? You don't charge less than 6% and I won't charge. That's an antitrust violation and there's big fines with that. So let's see if the video will explain it in any better terms.
The grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to
Still can't
write
get rid of this
essays
ass
that
though, huh?
inspire,
Jesus.
messages.
No way. 3%.
This is John. John is a salesperson at ABC Realty, and he's on the phone with another salesperson who works for Jones Real Estate.
What are they thinking?
John has just learned from his friend that there's a new brokerage in the vicinity.
Are you kidding me?
The new brokerage markets itself as a concierge brokerage, and they offer very low commission rates and flat fee commissions. Listen closely. See if you can figure out which 2 violations John and his friend are committing.
That's ridiculous. Seriously? A flat fee? No, I'm not going to show their listings either. That's a fact. We've got to nip this craziness in the bud. Right. I'll spread the word too. Bye.
The first violation, price fixing, which happens when any discussion between brokerages about commission rates or terms of an agent-client relationship takes place. The second violation, group boycotting. This happens when John and his friend agree not to show the other brokerage's listings. In other words, John and his friend conspire to not do business with a new firm because the firm does not do business like they. Business should be done. Now, watch as John digs himself deeper. Thank you for calling. This is Kimberly.
Hi, Kim. It's John over at ABC Realty. I was just calling to see if you heard about that new brokerage in town and their cut rate commissions.
So, now John has engaged in not one, but 2 price-fixing discussions. Let's go see how Kimberly reacts. John, this is not a conversation we should be having.
But Kimberly, if our competition takes flat fees and cut rate commissions, they'll put the rest of us out of business. We cannot show their listings. Do you get that?
What I get, John, is that the commission rate is negotiable between the listing agent and the seller. Period. Other agents should stay out of it. This conversation is over.
And you get off the phone.
So Kimberly's reaction was exactly right. She politely
Look at
but
that
firmly ended the conversation. Brokers should set an office policy that all personnel in the brokerage should not engage in such conversations. These conversations may
Oh, I must have lost the Wi-Fi. What's that, honey? That's okay. Did I mute it? Okay. So there was 2 violations there, right? Price fixing and group boycotting. Can't do neither one of them. Big fines. Allocation of customers or markets. Splitting markets. Lexi and Ellen say, hey, we both live in Ross Draver. Route 70 runs right down the middle of my office and your office. Why don't we do this? You don't come over to my territory, and I won't come over to yours. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. It's a violation. Tie-in agreements. Okay? The tie-in agreement is agreement to sell one property only on the condition that the buyer also purchases another, typically less desirable property. So, Lexi, you can't say to a buyer, I'll sell you this property, but you have to buy another one. This other property that I have. So let's say you got a nice house, or let's say you got a nice house in Ross Draver, $300,000. You can't say, hey, if you buy this $300,000 house in Ross Draver, you have to buy this $10,000 house in Elizabeth off of me. Typically, the second property is a less desirable property. Penalties up to $1 million, $1 million, and 10 years in prison. Okay? Squirrel, you're too cute to go to prison for 10 years. So you should never engage in any of these activities. And that's slide 17. See what I'm doing? I'm taking a picture of that, and I will definitely talk about that at one of my next meetings, because I haven't talked about it for a while. I haven't talked about it. And you know what? You'd be surprised. Agents do that all the time. They run into somebody. Lexi runs into Ellen at Starbucks and says, Jesus criminy, man. These companies are taking these listings for 3%. Why don't me and you just have a 5% minimum? Or Ellen asks Lexi, what's your minimum commission you're charging people? You can't do any of that. You can't have any of those discussions. Let's talk a little bit about legal consideration and technology. Am I going too fast for you guys? No? I mean, because we're going to be through 2 chapters here this morning. Aren't you excited about that? I'm telling you, I got 3 days to get through this whole practice with you, and then we can have, Dave will do a nice review of the whole book. I have handouts. I'll have printed out. We'll pass out to you. Andrew will have all this set up so Dave can just go in and do the slideshow. And Lex, you're going to have to be on call. For some reason, Andrew can't. Maybe we get Liz up here or you to help set all this crazy stuff. And it'll be a good day of review for you. And Dave will go over some math with you. I have some math I'm going to go over when we get some time. So we're going to have you prepared. I really like the scores that I seen on the test from you guys. You guys did good. You know, you guys did good. And I'm real happy with it. Let's talk about legal consideration and technology. Internet websites. The National Association of Realtors. Who's the National Association of Realtors? Who are they? What? NAR? Okay. Yes. And they are the what in the United States? Largest trade group. Like a union. They're the largest trade group. Okay. Adopted a new internet listing data exchange. They call it IDX. So you need to know that the National Association of Realtors adopted this new internet data exchange, IDX. And the policy allows MLS members to have equal rights to display MLS data. So what this did was, anybody ever go on realtor.com? Okay, so because of the IDX agreement we have with the multiple listing service, other brokers and other companies can use our data. So realtor.com taps into our feed in the multi-list through an IDX agreement, and they can put all the listings, these are all brokers, all your listings on their website. I can put on my website all your listings. So if you go to my personal website, I have a search area in my website, my company website, and the agent's websites, where you can search all the listings in the multiple listing service. Just know that's through a IDX agreement. Write that down. Big print, IDX. And it allows multi-list members to have equal rights to display multi-list data. Go ahead.
So is that what like Zillow is?
Yep, Zillow is. Yep, same thing. Zillow has, through an IDX agreement with our multi-list, they can get all the information. They can get all the information. Social networking sites. Okay. The broker of record sets guidelines for licensees. So social networking, Facebook. So it's my job to set requirements with my licensees that if they're going to display listings on their social site, the broker's name's got to be on there, just as prominent as theirs. Okay? Emails. Emails are very popular. Okay? And it's a way that we communicate back and forth. And then internet advertising. All electronic communication by real estate licensee must include the licensee's name, office address, and broker affiliation. Know that, please, for the test. And the licensee must disclose his status as a real estate broker or salesperson on each page of the website if they are advertising their own properties and it's not going through the broker. So if Lexi wants to sell her house, no, Vonnie's the agent for Lexi, right? Underneath Lex. If Vonnie wants to sell her own house, but she don't want to list it with Lexi, she can do that. She can do that, but she has to display on the social media advertising, newspaper advertising, any advertising that she does, that she's a licensed real estate agent. Because the government feels that because she's a licensed real estate agent, she has an unfair advantage over a typical person. So they want that typical person to know, I'm dealing with a licensed real estate agent that has more expertise than I do. Okay? And a listing of only the salesperson's name without the broker is prohibited. And I see this violation a lot. I was up the car wash. I see the real estate, they got like business cards there. I looked, one of the business cards was an agent. She works for a competitor. She didn't have a broker's name on her card. Violation. Billboard, agent's name, not the broker's. Violation. Broker's name has to be just as prominent as her name.
Has to be also legible as far as your phone number and everything else.
It has to be just as prominent. That's the language you're going to be looking for. Do not call registry. Licensees may call up to 18 months somebody that they have established a relationship with, and up to 90 days after the consumer makes an inquiry, and must not call the consumer if asked to remove. Okay? So I sign a buyer agency agreement with Vonnie. I can call, even if she's on a do not call registry, I can call her up to 18 months after that relationship has been established. 90 days after a consumer makes an inquiry. So if a consumer, let's say Seneca, inquires about one of my listings to me, and she's not on a do not call, she's on a do not call, I can call her up to 90 days. Unless either one of these situations, they say, hey, Tom, I'm on a do not call, don't bug me anymore. Done. Okay? No, 118 months after the last established relationship. An established relationship, Jared, would mean you had some type of an agreement with them. Listing agreement, buyer agency agreement, or 90 days after an inquiry. You can call them, even if they're on the do not call, unless they say, quit bugging me. Then they come off. And the CAN-SPAM Act gives consumers the right to have their email stopped emailing them. So I send email blast out. If somebody emails me back and says, take me off your list, I have to take them off my list. And if I don't, I'm violating the CAN-SPAM Act. It gives the consumers the right to have emailers stop emailing them. And then the Junk Fax Prevention Act of 2005, a real estate licensee should not send unsolicited fax messages. Just blast them out to everybody saying, list with me, I'm the best. Lex, can you stop my video for me? So that is the end of this session. Any questions?
We're rocking and rolling, baby.
We are.